This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. War comes to Cambodia, and I speak to a refugee that I love. A senior prosecutor is accused of letting criminals out the back door, and 7,000 chainsaws seized from illegal loggers. But firstly, that's our headline story, and it all started late last week when this headline appeared. Little did we know that these, in fact, were the first shots in a full-blown war. The headline said, "Firefight breaks out in Ode Minche province." I was going to follow this with some bigger headlines that followed, stories of bombs of death and of fighter jets over civilian heads. But then something happened to me, something that moved me so very deeply, because as a newsman, it is so easy to see the news as just headlines and pictures. But it ain't. It's so much more. It's about people. I received this text message, one which was a cry for help. It was from my beautiful Stinker, a young girl I have sponsored with her education and general living for many years. And here she is, just a child caught up in a war she knows nothing about and cares nothing about. You see, she lives directly on the border with Thailand, and her family were caught between two warring tribes. I will now translate her text I showed you a moment ago. I asked her, "Can you hear gunfire?" She says, "The sound of the guns are so loud, they scare me very much." She also said, "I can't get out because I lack the money." What she is telling me is her and her family are trapped in a war zone, and they could not afford to pay for any transportation to get them out. Money was immediately sent. And her family did as many others had to do. They left everything they hold precious behind, and they fled. Stinker and her family have bugger all. No, really, they are that poor they can't even afford a window on their tin wood hut. Here it is. It does not have running water, it does not have electricity, and like I said, they are so poor they don't even have a damn window. But it was theirs. It was their home. But now they have to leave it, like so many others displaced by this war. Independent reports state over 130,000 people in Cambodia have joined Stinker in their march southwards, away from the guns that spit death. Not conquest, not freedom. They spit only death. And it's usually the innocent who pay the ultimate price. The retreat by civilians has seemed to be very orderly. But what about the future? What hope is there? Well, as I record this, and please note that this could be out of date the moment I stop talking, as things happen really fast in wars. As it stands, there seems to be the same old political cup and ball games. You know, the game you can never win. Have a look at these headlines and watch very closely. Thailand claims it is ready for talks as international pressure for ceasefire mounts. Now watch very, very carefully as that hope dissipates into this. Thailand rejects US, China and Malaysia's offer to mediate to end disputes with Cambodia. Thailand has rejected anyone helping to mediate, which I would have thought is a pivotal point of any negotiation. I mean, if you need lawyers and a judge for a divorce, it kind of follows you may bloody well need mediators for a full-blown war. My Stinker is safe, and all of us are lucky to be far away from those guns. And me, I'm just a reporter, and I can't tell you how this war will end. But I can tell you how it started. It started with frightened children running. On this week's Crime Desk, a regional governor up on sexual assault charges, a corrupt prosecutor up on fraud charges, and incredibly, 7,000 chainsaws are seized from illegal loggers. And even that is worse than you think. A Mrs. Chan Pisay, who is 36, an official of Tebeng Menche district, has alleged that a governor of that region, a Mr. Sorpon, who is 58, subjected her to serious sexual abuse on numerous occasions, whilst her husband was away serving as a border soldier. She alleged that Sorpon sexually assaulted her multiple times, and she now has filed a case to the Prosecutor court demanding justice, as well as $25,000 in compensation. The governor, now caught up in this storm of controversy, has denied all allegations, but he has acknowledged the accuser was one of his officials. The Inspection Department of the Ministry of Interior has now completed its own investigation into the alleged rapes carried out from the 7th to the 9th of July. The situation is in fact so serious, the findings of that investigation have been forwarded directly to the Deputy Prime Minister for further action. Details cannot be disclosed until the Minister makes a decision, as it could influence the future court proceedings. The Governor is under one huge spotlight, but as of yet, his fate is unknown. Now, do you recall last week we had a blizzard of headlines saying how online fraud was part of a major clampdown? And I explained that it is so very easy to forget those being conned out of their life savings, as they are often vulnerable, like the mentally ill, the disabled, and the lonely, who are sucked in by a friendly voice on the phone. And all those scammers being arrested was a jolly good thing. But this week, we saw a step backwards when this headline appeared. Deputy Prosecutor of the Basat Provincial Court suspended over online fraud collusion allegations. Yes, it's alleged a prosecutor has been letting arrested criminals go out of the back door just after the police brought them in through the front door. But that headline was followed by this one, saying, "Online criminals released by suspended deputy prosecutor recaptured," reassuring us all that those illegally released did not get far. Now, this case goes all the way to the top. It started in July of 17th, when Ministry of Justice officers went to the Basat Provincial Court to investigate the case of Deputy Prosecutor Kraisi Ha. He was very promptly suspended from his duties in connection with allegations of working with well-known online fraud syndicates. This action was initiated on the strict orders of the Prime Minister, as he yet again asserts that these online scams that cause such misery can be shut down, and they will be shut down. Now, this is our last story for this week, so we're running a bit long. On this occasion, we see that there are some stories that bring a much larger picture into perspective. And on this particular case, it is the single number that starts the headline. Get a load of this. 7,000 chainsaws seized in crackdown on illegal logging. Yep, 7,000 chainsaws seized. Mother of God, that is ridiculous. I mean, just imagine the amount of noise that one makes, let alone 7,000. These 7,000 chainsaws were confiscated from illegal loggers in the Cardamom National Park in just the past year alone, taken by the Wildlife Alliance and the Ministry of Environment. An Environment Ministry spokesman said that the forest rangers in the protected areas have been utilising satellite imagery and drones to effectively patrol, prevent and to crack down on crimes involving natural resources. And that is a good thing. But this headline rang a bell in my head, and looking back in the archives, I found this from 2023. Over 6,000 chainsaws seized in Cardamoms. So from 6,000 in 2023 to 7,000 2 years later. That unfortunately is an increase of a full 16%. And remember, we are talking solely about the Cardamom Mountains here. Wildlife is under attack yet again. And yes, these seizures are important, but they also show that the road to protecting a nation's natural heritage only ever seems to go uphill. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
So here we are with a little piece from my life. Now, I was going to do a thing about my hamster eating nuts, but no, because we're dealing with war this week and desperation. And here is a bit of footage I shot also last week, which I've substituted, and it shows very poor community just outside of Siem Reap. And as we just stroll down here, we see there in the pink shirt, that's a stinker. You see, remember I called that lady, that girl that I helped, stinker? Well, that's because she's a young girl, and I call all young girls stinker because I can't remember anyone's name. So there you go. That's why I was referring to her. If you wondered why I called my stinker, that's because I call all young girls stinker. Now, this area is particularly poor, as you can see, but over the 20 years I've been travelling these roads, and I absolutely mean this, the standard of living has definitely got better. But this particular house I'm focusing on here has always grabbed my attention. There's a tiny little wooden door to the right there, you see. But if you look, there's a small window in the top left, and that's it. And that's how they used to build houses in the Victorian days, so nobody could break in. There used to be these little windows at the top. Isn't it fascinating? So now it's time to move on to the weather. And hold on, it won't get up, will it? Hold on, let me just twiddle and fiddle, and I am actually fiddling whilst I'm talking to you. Oh, damn it, no, don't say it's done that. Can you hear the bleeping sound? I'm not joking when I do this. Hold on, I'm just gonna get up, and it's damn well gonna stay up. There it is! Whoo! I've done it. And what do we see? Well, after all that, it was worth it, kind of. We've got a mixture. We haven't just got rain across the board. We have rain, we have thunder, we have lightning. It will be more localised. It has calmed down some. What am I seeing as a high temperature? I've got a 32. I've got another 32. My high this week is 33. And the wind, it says, will be a lot more gentle at just 8 kilometres per hour.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.